Good morning, everybody. Shefa Brucha V'Atzlucha. Parashat Chukat. One of the interesting things about our parsha is we're talking about the laws of the Parah Aduma, of the red cow. And Shlomo HaMelech, when he got to this point, he says, "Echkem avir chok hameni." I've got a lot of wisdom, but I cannot understand this mitzvah. And the real truth is, if we look into it, we will find out some very interesting point. But first of all, to understand one important point. It's not written Zot Chukat Parah Aduma. That's the law of the Parah Aduma. It's Zot Chukat Torah. That's the law of the Torah. And the idea behind this is that it doesn't matter if you understand what it's all about, why you have to do certain things, and it doesn't matter if you think you know what you have to do the mitzvahs because God told you to do them. In other words, every mitzvah. It doesn't matter because that's what Shlomo HaMelech really is saying. Even if I think I know the mitzvah, still I have to understand that I'm not fully aware of what is behind every mitzvah. An important point, every mitzvah's got a reason. Our Father in heaven, the Kodesh Baruch Hu, it doesn't give us anything to do with no reason. And all the reasons are for the benefit of us. So even if you understand, and even if you don't understand, that's the law of the Torah. You have to try and understand certain things. But even if you think you understand, it still means that you do it not because you understand why, because God told you that you have to do this. Because in a lot of places, even if you understand what it's all about, still, this is not the whole thing. For example, when we look at Rashi in our parsha, we will find interesting things. Rashi explains exactly what is the idea behind Parah Aduma. And he says it's because of the sin of the golden calf. And Parah Aduma, she came to purify what we did wrong in the Chet HaEgel, Baal Lekaper. So, and he, by the way, he's writing again and again. He's writing like a whole thing about Parah Aduma. If I'll find it in a minute, we read a few things and we understand and you see how it is. Zot Chukat Torah. 1 minute. Come on. הנה אופס המחנה. יש לו אנשים, ברור, התחתן בו. אותי. לחזור. זה מהדידה. Oh, here. And look at it. וכל השיגע בו התמהר, זה שנטמע באמת יטמע, הנפש שנוגעת באמת יטמע, וכאן למדנו שאבי אבות יטמע ונוגע בו, ויקחו אליך משלהם, כשם שהם פרקו נזמי הזהב לעגל משלהם, כך יביאו זו לכפרה משלהם. The same way as they took the golden how do you say, jewelry they had in the noses and wherever, they gave it willingly from their own property to build the golden calf. That's why they have to bring this egel, they have to bring it from kapara on what they did, from their own money. Parah Aduma, what's the idea? Mashal ben Shifcha, a son of a slave girl that dirtied the hall of the king. Amru tavo imo, come the mother and we clean what he did there, his whatever he did. And here also the parah, the cow is coming to lechaper, to be kapara, tournament on the egel, on the golden calf. Aduma, al shem, what is aduma? Red, like the red is the chet, the sin is red. Tmima, al shem Israel shetumim tmima, what is tmima? Innocent. Like Am Yisrael, they were innocent, and when they did it, then they stop being innocent. תבוא זו ותכפר עליהם ויחזרו, לא עליה עליה עול, and nothing has to come on her. You're not allowed to work with her, not to do anything. Like they took from them the all shamayim, like the God what gave them. And it goes on and on and on. ושרף את הפרה, and he burned the parah the same way as the egel was burned. It says also, so there is a reason. And Rashi goes on and on and on, explain. What, Shlomo HaMelech didn't know what Rashi is saying here? What's going on here? So here we have to understand, the Rambam writes about it. It's impossible that God will give you a mitzvah that comes in order to have kapara on something that you didn't do yet. Because para aduma was given to us before Chet HaEgel, before the golden calf. So it's impossible that the para aduma is against the Chet HaEgel, because Chet HaEgel didn't happen yet. And you could say, En mukdam o chabad, you can say a lot of things, but this is a problem. So the explanation of Rashi is beautiful, and maybe it's also, a part of the reason. Who am I to say no? But Shlomo Melech says, he says, I've got all the wisdom. He was the cleverest guy in the world. God gave him the wisdom that nobody else had. So if he says that he doesn't know the reason, there is no reason. But as we said, what Shlomo Melech really is saying, even if you think you know the reason, it's not the real deep reason. So it doesn't matter if you know or you don't know, you still have to do it as a law. That's why it's written, Zot Chukat Torah. That's the law of the Torah, and not the law of para aduma. The problem is, how do we act in life? How do we find the right way to do the right things? So, as we said, from one side we have to learn why and try and find the reason. From the other side, it doesn't matter if you find the reason or if we don't find the reason, or even if you find the reason and we realize that it's not the real deep reason, we still do all the mitzvahs God told us to do, understanding that whatever God told us to do is for the benefit of us, for the good of us, and it's for the good connection between us and God. But sometimes in life you stand in a point that you have to decide what to do. And this is going to what's happening in the other side of the parasha with the king. Let's find it. One minute. Israel sending angels, messengers to Sichon, the king of the Amorite, and says, I want to go through your country. I'm not going to touch anything. I'm not going to drink. We just want to go through. And Sichon says, no, you will not come through. And he gathers all his army and he comes out to fight Am Israel. And what's happening? This Am Israel, they hit him very badly and they win and they take all his country. ויקח ישראל את כל הערים האלה, and he takes all those cities and he sits there in all the cities of the Amorite, בחשבון ובכל בנותיה. חשבון is one of the cities, and look what's written, כי חשבון עיר סיחון מלך אמורי היא, because חשבון is the city of Sichon, the king of the Amorite, והוא נלחם במלך מואב הראשון, ויקח את כל ארצו מידו עד ארנון. But it was not always his. He went to war, and he took this Cheshbon from the king of Moab. And then comes a very interesting pasuk. Al ken yomru hamoshlim bo'u Cheshbon tibane v'tikoneni Chesachon. Bo'u Cheshbon. Cheshbon is the name of the town, but Cheshbon is also calculation. Cheshbon, like the Chafetz Chaim says, that one of the things you are going to come to heaven, they're going to ask you, why did you live life without doing any calculation, any cheshbonot, any what's good and what's bad? So in other words, one of the most important things in life is to do the right calculation, what is good and what is bad. How do you do this? So look here, Cheshbon was really a town of Moab. Why do we need to know it? Because we are not allowed to fight Moab. In other words, when the king Sichon, the Amorite king, thought when he won this great, says this is what very hard city to conquer, and when he had this big success in the war and he conquered Cheshbon, he thought he's the biggest king in the world. Wow, he can do whatever he wants. So he went against Am Israel. He didn't know that what he really did, he was purifying the land of Moab, so Am Israel can now take it, because it's not Moab's land anymore, but it is the Amorites' land, and Am Yisrael can fight the Amorites. If he would have known this calculation, he wouldn't have been so happy about winning this war. And maybe if he wouldn't even try to go and conquer Heshbon. But of course, the idea here is for us to learn. What is for us to learn? To learn and understand that in life you need to do the right calculation. What is right and what is wrong. And as we said in the beginning, we have to keep the Torah as it is. If we understand and if we don't understand. Because one of the problems is that sometimes we think we understand and we try to do our cheshbonos, our calculation, and the problem is, who is really doing the calculation? Is it the neshama, the brain, the moach, or is it our heart, our desire, our lust, our yetzer hara? And unfortunately, a lot of times in life, we find out that who is doing the cheshbonot is not the seichel, it's not the neshama, it's not the, what is really doing the cheshbonos, the calculation, is yetzer hara, the lust. And this is what the Torah is telling us. Al ken yomru hamoshlim, the governors, they will say, Bo'u cheshbon. Bo'u na'aseh cheshbono shel olam, say our sages. Let's do the calculation of this world, the cheshbon, the right cheshbon. And what is moshlim? Governors are moshlim beyitzram, those who control and rule over the yetzer hara. Those are the only one who can do the right calculation. Otherwise, your calculation come from a point of view of lust, desire, from your heart, from your you want, and then you change things, and instead of doing the right thing, you do the wrong thing. I tell you two stories, very interesting. Years ago, we used to go with my parents, Aleim Shalom, to a hotel in Jerusalem. It was quite expensive, the hotel, for Pesach and Sukkot. On Pesach, there were this, you have to understand that you saw there's a lot of Haredim there also in the hotel. It was all ultra, like they had a very good kashrut. And there were those women changing clothes 5 times a day. In the morning, for the breakfast, for tea, in the afternoon, for lunch, for dinner, whatever, 5 times. And every time like you had like a fashion show. And really, you thought all those people are millionaires. One day, I'm sitting and talking with this guy, and he is a Rav in a yeshiva. You know, Rav in a yeshiva that gets a normal salary, not a very high salary, normal low salary. And we're talking and saying, from the salary that you earn, like, can you come to this expensive hotel? He says, you see, the whole year I'm being stingy. The whole year I'm keeping low because I want 1 week in the year. Pesach is Yetziah Ma'avdut Lecharot, going out of slavery to freedom. I want to feel a week in a year like a gvir, like a rich guy. Freedom. I want to do anything without calculation. So all year I save for this week. Is this the right calculation? You tell me. And the same thing, calculation, talking about calculation. You have to wake up in the morning early to go to daven in a minyan. It's hard, I cannot do this, and that. But if you had to wake up for a flight, for a holiday, which is very early in the morning, how would you get up? Suddenly, you can get up. Because it's for you, for your joy, for your lust. And this is exactly the point. Doing the right cheshbon, doing the right calculation. What is important, what is less important. It's like people looking, and you know those calculations, they're all over us. And this is the idea, to understand and realize that to do the right calculation is to go in the way of the Torah and ask our Rabbonim, the Gdolei Ador. Not everybody who calls himself a rabbi is a rabbi, by the way. You have to understand, and we all know it. We all know who is the right rabbi or who is the one who plays around. And you know, like when I sometimes hear those, I never forget that somebody was talking about was talking about a certain issue, and he said things that were unbelievable, and he was quoting the Rambam. So I went in and took the Rambam and learned the whole thing, And I realized what this guy was doing is he's taking from here a sentence, from there a sentence, and he really distract the whole idea of the Rambam. So my question to this guy is, what you saying that we can do, and this is the right way to do it, did the Rambam did it? You quoting the Rambam, but I want to ask you, in real life, did the Rambam do what you're saying now? And I'm sure he didn't, because what you did, you take a word from here, a word from there, and you did your own calculation. Why? Because you wanted to come to a certain conclusion. So it wasn't the neshama, it wasn't the clear mind that was looking at the problem. It was your lust, your heart wanted something, and this is why you distracted the whole idea. And it's like people talking about the Haredim not going to the army. And I have to tell you, a few years ago, not now, a few years ago, I went to, I think one of our relative, he had finished his training, and they had this tekes in, where was it? It was Givati, near Jerusalem, where they do it. And we come to the tekes, and I must tell you, I saw so many people there from all the range of the people that live in Eretz Israel, but also Bedouins, from the minorities, and religious, not religious. But what took my eyes was there were quite a few, not one, two, quite a few Haredim families, yes, Haredim, that were proud that their son went to the army and is finishing the training, and you saw how proud they was, kissing and hugging him, and that's Haredim. You know, like yesterday I saw this film, this guy who is an officer in the army, but he's Haredi. He's got payers, and he got a black kippah, and he goes with a white shirt. And this lady goes on the bus and tells, "Oh, mishtamtim, you don't go to the army, you go to the army." And there was all discussion there. I says to her, "How dare you talk with me? Why, because I have a white shirt and a black kippah and a payas, you decided I didn't do the army?" And there was a whole argument there. And this is exactly the point what we're talking about. All those calculations we do is because we listen to people that we shouldn't listen. And sometimes we want things to look the way it suits us. So we see the fights around us, the left, the right, what they're talking about, this hate that we see in the country. It's all basic. That's what the Torah is telling us. Al ken yomru hamoshlim. If you want to do the right calculation in life, you have to take two things in consideration. First of all, the Torah is the way, and it's the only way and the best way for us, because God our Father in heaven gave it to us. And even if you don't understand sometimes the mitzvahs, that's the law, and God did it for us, for the good of us. And that's the first thing. And the second thing, when you hear things, and when you know that you have a certain idea, a certain lust for something, clear your conscience, clear your heart, start to think from your brain, not from your heart, and do the right calculation, who to listen to and who you shouldn't listen to. And again, the way that we should go is the way of the Torah. And I'm sure that each one of us got his stories about doing calculation that will suit his own opinion or his own desire. But that's not the right way. And that's exactly what we see in our parsha. You think you're a winner, but you're a loser. Like Sichon, the king of Emirates, he thought he's a winner. I'm winning the war. I won. I just concreted the hardest town to concrete, Cheshbon. And what happened in the end? That what was really doing is delivering Cheshbon to Am Yisrael. But he didn't know it. He didn't do the right calculation. But we will learn from our parsha to do the right calculation. To understand, Zot Chukat Torah, that's the law of the Torah. We understand, we don't understand, that's the Torah, that's the way we go. And we want to know what is the way, and we don't understand what is in the Torah, so we have our sages, we have our Chachamim, we have our Gdolei Hador. They are telling us what to do. Not each guy in the street will tell us what is right and what is wrong. We have to have the mind to clean the Yetzer Hara and think from the head and not from the heart. All the best and Shavua Tov.